let's learn how to make an op art heart. So do you think the hearts look flat or curved, and why? Well, they should appear a little bit curved because of the use of curved lines versus straight lines in the background. There's two different ways you can do this project. The one on the left that is cool colors, I added a little bit of water and salt to my colored markers at the end. That's just an optional way of doing this to add an extra special touch. I'll go over how to do it in a little bit in the video. The one on the right that is in rainbow order, that's without the water and the salt. So you could decide which one you like better and what materials you have to work with. But before we go over the project, let's review op art. Op art is also known as optical art and was an art movement that became popular in the 1960s. It is often seen in black and white, but contrasting colors are used also. Op art is known to play tricks on your eyes through the careful planning of color, shapes, and lines. Op artists show movement like warping, swelling, or flashing images. Here's a few examples of different optical illusions with a heart. Now let's go over the directions for our project. For your supplies, you will need a piece of paper, a pencil, an eraser, scissors, colored markers, and a black colored pencil or crayon. Some optional supplies are washable markers, a paintbrush, a water cup, and a little bit of salt. Just like regular table salt is fine. And this would be if you want your project to end up looking like the cool colored example. First, we'll start by folding our paper and cutting it into a square. Then we'll draw half of our heart with pencil and we'll end up tracing the other half to get a symmetrical heart. With markers, we'll draw straight lines in the background and curved lines inside the heart. After, outline the heart shape with a black colored pencil or crayon and add shading around the edges to make it look 3D. The next step is optional if you have the painting supplies. You can paint over the marker with water and turn the marker into a watercolor and then sprinkle it with a little salt and let it dry. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So to make your op art heart, you'll need a piece of paper, a pencil, an eraser, scissors, and then something to add color to your heart. I will be using markers, and at the end, we'll be adding some shading around our heart to make it look 3D. So you'll need a black crayon or a black colored pencil for that. I'm also going to show you a special trick to turn washable markers into watercolor paint. This is just optional, but you'll need washable or water-based markers, a paintbrush and some kind of water cup. And then a finishing touch we'll be adding is a little bit of salt sprinkled on top of our watercolor. This is just regular table salt that I'm going to grind up and sprinkle on my project at the end. And again, this is just an option for adding color. So to start off, we're going to turn this paper into a square. So this is a 9 by 12 piece of paper. You might have a paper this size, you might have a paper close to this size, but this is a rectangle and we want to turn it into a square. So to do that, we're going to take any of the corners, it doesn't matter which one. We're going to pull that corner over to the side and line up those edges. And then we're going to make a crease, and you want this crease to be right on the corner. So make sure your edge lines up and then make a crease. Then to turn it into a square, we're going to cut off this part. We don't need this part of our paper. So I'm going to use my scissors and I'm just cutting along where the edge is. Then you can set this piece of paper aside. We're gonna open it up, and now we have a crease down the middle. Then we're going to draw 1/2 of our heart. So this crease is like where the middle of our heart will be. And we want the heart to be in the middle of our paper. So I'm practicing this a little bit with my finger before I draw it, and I'm going to draw 1/2 of a heart. I want it to take up most of my paper, but not go all the way to the edge. Now that I've drawn one side of my heart, I'm going to make the other side. Instead of drawing the other side of the heart, I'm going to go back over that pencil line with my pencil again, and I'm making this a dark outline. So I'm pressing down hard on the line that I made, and I'm kind of doing a little bit of coloring with my pencil so that I have a really nice dark line. I'm getting a lot of lead onto my paper from my pencil. Then I'm going to fold my paper in half, and I can see where that line is through my paper. If I hold it up here, you'll probably be able to see it better. And I'm going to draw on this side and press down where the line is. By doing this, I'm transferring the lead to the other side of the paper. And it's going to be pretty light, but you're going to be able to trace over it and create a darker line. So now I can see the shape of the heart, and I'm going to trace over that line so that I can see it better. Now this side is a little bit dark, so I'm going to erase it a little bit because I don't really need all of that pencil line on my paper. I just wanted it so that I could see through the paper. Now we're ready to add color. I will be using markers to add color to my heart, and we're going to do this in a special way. If you'd like to turn your markers into paint, make sure you're using a washable marker or a marker that says it's water-based and not permanent. When you think about the colors you're going to use on your heart, try to come up with a pattern. You could do a rainbow pattern, you could do all warm colors, you could do all cool colors, you could come up with a different pattern of colors, but think about colors that go well together. So like analogous colors. Colors that sit next to each other on the color wheel always go nicely together. So like blue, green, and blue, or orange, red, and pink. But it is up to you because you are the artist. So I'm going to use cool colors on my heart, and we're going to draw a stripe or a line of each color. When we get to the heart though, our line is going to arch. It's going to go up kind of like a rainbow. When you're in the background around your heart, your lines are going to be straight or horizontal, straight lines that go across. The idea with this is that we want our heart to look three-dimensional, like it is curved and not flat like the piece of paper. We're giving that illusion by drawing those curved lines. We're also going to add to that illusion by doing a little bit of shading at the end. So I'm going to start up here at the top corner above my heart, and I'm going to just start by drawing a horizontal line and fill it in with color. I'm going to make my lines about a 1/2 inch thick of color, and I'm going to work in my pattern that I've chosen. So this is going to stay as a horizontal line. And I'm just drawing a line below, above, and then coloring that in. I'm not leaving any white space between my colors either. The top of my heart shape, and now I need to start curving my lines when I go inside of the heart. So with my next color, which is purple in my pattern, I'm going to draw my line like I normally would. on the top, like where it's touching the blue here. I'm drawing the second line to end this color shape. I'm going to draw a curve. The more you arch your curve, the better your illusion will be. So this is just the very beginning of my curved lines inside my heart. Now I'm going to color in that shape. So again, I'm using my green to create the first line next to purple. With the bottom line, it's really important that when you get to the heart, you arch your line. So you're making kind of like a rainbow line or a rainbow curve. If your arches get too flat, then you will lose your illusion. So we want to make sure that we are keeping our lines arched. So straight line in the background, curved rainbow line inside the heart, straight line in the background for this little part here that's showing, curved line inside the heart, and straight line in the background. Get through the two bumps of the heart, you're just going to make one big arch. So I think after the purple line, I'm going to just do one big arch. So for my curve, it's just gonna go all the way across. It's not gonna go whoop, whoop. It's gonna go whoop all the way across the heart. So with my green, I'm gonna draw my straight line in the background, then my curved line inside the heart, and then my straight line in the background. And I'm going to continue that all the way down. I've reached the bottom of the heart, I can just continue my pattern with straight lines in the background. So I'm just going to draw my line below and then fill it in. Notice that I like to turn my paper. I just find that it's easier for me to color in and draw straight lines when I turn my paper. Now that I've colored in my entire heart and the background, our next step is adding shading around the edge of the heart. So you'll need a black colored pencil or a black crayon for this. Let's practice shading first on the back of our paper. So when you're shading, we're going to be working with value. Value means the amount of light or dark in a color. You can press harder on your material to get a dark value. You can let go to get a medium value, and you can barely press down on it to get a very light value. This works with a crayon too. Press hard on it to get a dark value, medium amount to get a medium value, and very lightly to get a light value. Notice that I have some different values on the edge of my heart. It's dark at the edge and it gradually gets lighter. So to do this, look for the pencil line that is the heart shape, and we're gonna go over it with our black colored pencil, or you can use a crayon. I'm just creating an outline first and going over that pencil line. I'm kind of going back and forth so it has a nice dark outline that I can really see. I'm not just going over it once. I'm gonna go all the way around the shape. And now I'm going to add some of that shading on the inside of the heart. I have a little bit more shading on the left side of the heart than the right because I decided that that was the shadow side. So I'm going to do a little bit more on the left. The right side has a little bit, but it's lighter. Notice that this side has more over here than this one. So decide which side is your shadow side. You're gonna add a little bit more shading there. To add shading, you're going to press hard at the edge of the heart, let go, and get a medium value and then a very light value, like you're barely pressing down on your material. I'm gonna do this all the way around the heart. And remember, I'm adding a little bit more on the left side. Now I'm all done with my shading, so you can see that by adding the shading, it really adds to the illusion that the heart is 3D. Now I'm going to show you the watercolor trick that I will be using with my markers. Remember, this is just optional, and if you used washable markers on your project, this should work. So I'm going to put a messy mat under my project to protect my table. I need a water cup and a paintbrush, and I need some salt. So I ground up some salt here. You could also use pre-ground salt. I'm going to use that at the very end. And now I'm just going to use my brush and I'm going to paint over the marker lines. And I'm doing this in a horizontal motion. I'm not taking my brush and going all over the paper at one time. I'm doing it a little bit at a time, and I'm starting to see my colors bleed. This might take a couple minutes to work. So I'm just putting water right on top of the marker there. I'm trying to move quickly because I want to add the salt while my paper is still wet. So as I'm painting water on, I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of salt right on top of the water. And what the salt is going to do is soak up some of that water and make really cool spots when your project dries. Then you're going to brush off the salt. So I'm doing this as the water is still wet on my paper. So I'm painting a little section. Then I'm going to sprinkle that section with salt so that the salt can attach to the paper from the wet water. So I finished painting and sprinkling salt on top of my project. I'm going to let it sit here and dry and come back in a little while and remove the salt. So I let my painting actually sit out overnight, and now all of it is dry, and I'm going to remove the salt. I'm just gonna turn my paper up and shake it off. And then the remaining salt, I'm just going to rub it off in circular motions with my fingers. If you'd rather leave the salt on your paper, you can do that too. That's up to you. So we can see what the salt does with watercolor. It creates these little white spots, and I did add a lot, so it did kind of take away some of the color, but I still think it looks really cool. And then here's my rainbow version, which I'm not adding any water to. So I'm just gonna leave this as is. So whichever way you choose to do it, if you choose to add water and turn your washable markers into paint and sprinkle it with salt, that's great. If you choose to leave it just like stripes of color, then that also looks really cool. I hope you had fun with this lesson, learning about op art and learning how to make your heart look 3D like it's coming off of the paper using curved lines and some shading. I can't wait to see what your hearts look like. Have fun, artist!